My name is Anna Mercer, 33 years old. Last week, my father called me about his promotion dinner. 19 senior partners, private room at the Colonnade. He said, "Come alone. Your electrician husband doesn't belong at a table with executives." I answered, "Then neither do I." He hung up. That same night, my sister Rachel sent me a shaky video from the dinner. In the video, my father's managing partner, Alexander Hartfield, stood up, pointed across the room, and said loudly, "Lawrence, your son-in-law? Isn't he the one who—" The video cut off. Rachel texted right after, "You need to see the rest. Call me now." I didn't call, because I already knew what my father didn't. For 8 months, his firm had been desperately chasing the patent holder who refused to license the technology that could make or break his entire promotion. They never knew the man's name. They never saw his face. Until that night. If you're still listening, hit that like button. Only if you're genuinely hooked. And let me know in the comments. Have you ever been told not to bring your partner to a family event? Where are you watching from right now? It started on June 7th, 2023. 2 things happened that day. My mother, Elizabeth Mercer, died at 3:42 in the afternoon after 11 months of fighting cancer. And my husband Nate's patent was granted by the United States Patent and Trademark Office at some point that morning, though we wouldn't check the mail for another week. The timing felt cruel. Like the universe was taking something away and giving something back in the same breath, but to different people, so neither of us could fully feel either thing. My father stood at my mother's funeral 3 days later and thanked everyone for coming. He shook hands. He accepted condolences. He was composed. Lawrence Mercer, senior partner at Hartfield and Klein, a man who'd spent 30 years mastering the art of professional composure, wasn't going to fall apart in front of 200 people. At the reception, he found Nate, shook his hand, said, "Thank you for taking care of my daughter." It was the last kind thing he said to my husband. I didn't notice the shift immediately. Grief has a way of filling every corner of your awareness, leaving no room to see the smaller cruelties forming in the gaps. My mother had been the bridge between my father's intellect and his humanity. She softened his edges. She translated his bluntness into something that felt like care. Without her, the edges stayed sharp. 2 months after the funeral, we had family dinner at my father's house, August 2023. Rachel was there. It was the first time we'd all been together since the service. Nate mentioned a project he was working on, a hospital retrofit, complex electrical panel upgrade, challenging but going well. My father looked at him, nodded once, and said, "That's nice." Then he turned to me. "Anna, how's your writing work?" As if Nate hadn't spoken at all. I answered my father's question because I didn't know what else to do. Rachel looked at me across the table. I saw the question in her eyes. Did that just happen? It had. That became the pattern. November 2023. Thanksgiving at my father's house. He talked for 40 minutes about a client engagement his firm was handling, something about energy consulting for a retail chain. Strategy, implementation challenges, market analysis. Nate tried to contribute. He'd been working on energy efficiency problems in commercial buildings for years. He opened his mouth to mention a pattern he'd noticed in HVAC systems. My father said, "The complexity here is really at the corporate level, not the implementation level," and turned to Rachel. "How's your consulting work going?" Nate went quiet. I watched his face close. Not angry, just absent. Like he'd decided there was no point in being present for a conversation that didn't include him. I wanted to say something, defend him, force my father to listen, but what would I say? "Dad, you're being rude?" He'd deny it. He'd say he was just having a conversation. He'd make me feel dramatic for noticing. So I said nothing. December 2023. Christmas. My father gave Rachel a leather portfolio from the tannery. He gave me a gift card to Anthropology. He gave Nate a $50 gift card to Home Depot. "For your work," he said, smiling. Nate thanked him, put it in his wallet, never mentioned it again. I looked at that gift card for weeks afterward, sitting in our kitchen drawer. $50. For a man who makes $85,000 a year running his own electrical contracting business. For a man who'd spent 4 years at MIT earning a degree in electrical engineering before deciding he preferred hands-on work to sitting in an office designing systems he'd never see built. Not that my father knew any of that. He'd never asked. March 2024. My father's birthday dinner at a restaurant in Back Bay. 15 people. Family and a few of his colleagues. One of his partners, a man named Thomas Brennan, asked Nate where he went to school. Nate said, MIT. Thomas looked impressed. "Oh, wonderful. What did you study?" "Electrical engineering. Graduated 2010. My father actually interrupted. "Oh, did you take some continuing education courses there? They have great programs for tradespeople." Nate's face didn't change. "No, I did my bachelor's degree. 4 years. Graduated with a BS in electrical engineering." My father blinked. "Well, that's good." He changed the subject within 30 seconds. Brought up a case study from work. Never mentioned MIT again. I waited for him to bring it up later. To acknowledge it. To show even a flicker of curiosity about why a man with an MIT engineering degree was working as an electrician. He never did. That's when I realized. My father didn't forget. He dismissed. There's a difference. Forgetting is passive. Dismissal is a choice. Easter 2025. We were at my father's house again. I'd made the mistake of hoping things might improve. They didn't. My father mentioned that Rachel's boyfriend, a law associate at a mid-size firm, was up for junior partner. "Now that's a trajectory worth celebrating," he said. He said it to me, in front of Nate, as if Nate wasn't sitting 3 feet away. I said, "Nate's company just won a bid for the new medical center renovation downtown. It's a $2 million project." My father smiled. "That's his company's project, Anna, not his." "He's the lead electrician," I said. "It's his work." "Of course. I'm sure he's very skilled at what he does." The tone. That's what killed me. Not the words. The tone. Like he was complimenting a child on a finger painting. Nate told me later when we were driving home, "Your father will never see me as anything but a worker." That's okay. I don't need his validation. I said, "But I need him to see you." He asked, "Why?" I didn't have an answer. October 2025. Sunday dinner. My father was in an expansive mood. He'd been talking more about his work lately, specifically about his firm's new focus on energy consulting. "We're advising a major retail client on reducing energy costs across 800 stores," he said. "The challenge is retrofitting existing systems without full replacement. Very complex, very sophisticated." Nate looked up from his plate. My father continued, "These are corporate-level challenges, not something you encounter in residential work." Nate said quietly, "I work commercial, not residential." My father said, "Of course," and kept talking. Nate didn't try again. I noticed, sitting there at that dinner table, that my father had been talking about energy efficiency for months, energy consulting, retail clients, HVAC optimization. All of it in Nate's field. All of it work Nate had been doing for years. And not once had my father asked Nate's opinion. Not once. Later, in our car, I asked Nate, "Could you solve their problem? The retail chain?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I already did. Filed the patent in 2021. Should we tell Dad?" "Why?" "He won't care until he has to." I didn't understand what he meant then. I do now. November 2025, a Tuesday night. We were having dinner at our house, just the two of us. Leftover pasta, nothing special. Nate mentioned, casually, that he'd been in licensing negotiations with a consulting firm since July. I asked which firm. He said, Hartfield and Klein. I set down my fork. That's Dad's firm. Nate nodded. I know. I didn't make the connection until the second Zoom call in October. I saw the letterhead. My heart was beating faster. Does Dad know it's you? No. They're negotiating through an intermediary law firm, Carter and Associates. They've never asked about my personal connections to anyone at Hartfield and Klein. I'm just listed as Nathan Brooks, sole inventor, licensed electrician in Massachusetts. That's all they have. I stared at him. Should I tell him? Why would you? Because it's his firm. Because this could affect his work. Nate leaned back in his chair. Anna, your father has never once asked about my work. Not in 8 years. If I tell him now, what happens? Either he tries to pressure me to give favorable terms because we're family, or he thinks I'm trying to leverage the relationship. I'd rather keep it separate. But what if it comes out? Then it comes out. I'm not hiding anything. I'm just not broadcasting it. If Hartfield and Klein wants to license my patent, they need to meet my safety standards. Family connection doesn't change that. I asked what they were offering. He said, unlimited perpetual license with no implementation oversight. They want to hire the cheapest subcontractors to maximize profit per installation. I keep saying no. How long has this been going on? Since July. 5 months now. 6 term sheets. All rejected. Does Dad know about the negotiations at all? I have no idea. They're working through the energy practice. He might be involved. He might not. I don't ask, and they don't tell me who's on their team. I sat there in our kitchen, trying to process. My father's firm was negotiating with my husband for months, and neither of them knew the other was involved. I could have told my father. I could have sent him an email that night. Dad, you should know. Nate owns the patent your firm is trying to license. I didn't. Not out of malice. Not out of strategy. Out of exhaustion. My father had spent 8 years not asking about Nate's work. Why should I hand him information he'd never valued enough to seek? And honestly, Nate was right. If I told him, it would just create complications. He'd think Nate was trying to manipulate him, or I was trying to interfere, or somehow this was all a setup. Better to let it play out. I asked Nate, what happens if they never meet your terms? He said, then they don't get the patent, and their client doesn't get the energy savings they promised. That could affect Dad's career. I know, Nate said quietly, but I won't compromise on safety. Not even for family. That night, lying in bed, I thought about what he'd said. Not even for family. My father had spent years making it clear that Nate wasn't really family. Not the kind that mattered. Not the kind you invite to executive dinners or acknowledge at birthday parties or ask about their work. Nate was just an electrician. Someone who existed in the margins of my father's awareness. Someone you were polite to but never curious about. And now, without knowing it, my father's entire career trajectory depended on that electrician's signature. The irony wasn't lost on me. January 2026. My father called, elated. He was being promoted to managing partner of the energy practice at Hartfield and Klein. It was the culmination of 30 years of work. Everything he'd been building toward. I'm planning a celebration dinner, he said. All the senior partners. March 15th. You'll be there, of course. Dad, that's wonderful. Congratulations. It's more than wonderful. It's validation. 30 years of work. This is what real achievement looks like, Anna. I didn't ask what he meant by real achievement. I already knew. He said, the dinner will be at the Colonnade, private room. Only the best for this occasion. I said I was proud of him. I was. Even then, even after everything, I was still hoping we could get back to something that felt like family. He said, "It'll be good for you to see what success looks like at this level." There it was. The implication. This is what real success looks like. Not your husband's work. This. I should have known then what was coming. Sunday, March 8th, 2026. The call came just after 6 in the evening. I was at home, working on documentation for a client. Nate was still at a job site in Cambridge. My father's voice was cheerful when I answered. "Anna, I wanted to give you the details for my dinner. March 15th, 7 p.m., the Colonnade, formal attire." "That sounds lovely, Dad." "It will be. 19 senior partners, all attending. Alexander Hartfield himself will be there. This is the moment I've worked for." "I'm happy for you." "I want you there, Anna. It's important to me that you see this." "Of course. Nate and I will—" He interrupted. "Actually, I need to talk to you about that. I think it's best if you come alone." The words hung in the air for a moment. I wasn't sure I'd heard him correctly. "I'm sorry. What?" "This is a professional event," he said. "High-level discussions. Your electrician husband won't be comfortable, and frankly, I don't want to spend the evening explaining his presence to my colleagues." Through the window, I could see Nate's van pulling into the driveway. He was home early. I had about 30 seconds to decide how this conversation was going to end. "Let me make sure I understand you correctly," I said. "You're uninviting my husband to your celebration dinner because you're embarrassed by what he does for a living." "Anna, I'm thinking of Nathan. He'll be sitting there while we discuss corporate energy markets, consulting strategies, client relationships. He won't have anything to contribute. It'll be uncomfortable for him." "You've never asked him what he could contribute?" "I know what electricians do, Anna. They're skilled tradespeople. I respect that. But this is a different world." "You mean your world?" "I mean the professional world. The world of people who've spent decades building expertise in corporate strategy." Nate spent 4 years at MIT building expertise in electrical engineering. And then he chose to install wiring. That was his choice. But it doesn't qualify him for a seat at this table. I heard Nate's keys in the door. I had to end this before he walked in and saw my face. "I'm asking you to understand," my father said. "This is my moment. I need you there to celebrate with me, but I need you to come alone." I said, "Then neither do I." Silence. 3 full seconds of it. Then, "Anna, think about what you're saying." "I have thought about it. For 3 years, I've watched you dismiss my husband. I've watched you ignore him, interrupt him, condescend to him. And I've stayed quiet because I kept hoping you'd change." "I haven't dismissed anyone. I've been nothing but polite to Nathan." "Polite isn't the same as respectful. You've never asked him about his work. You've never asked about his education. You've never treated him like an equal." "Because he's not my equal, Anna. He's a tradesman. I'm a managing partner at a consulting firm. Those aren't equivalent positions." Nate walked in, saw me on the phone. My face must have given it away because he mouthed, "Your dad?" I nodded. "You're right," I said into the phone. "They're not equivalent. Nate actually builds things. You just talk about them." My father's voice rose. "If you don't come to this dinner, you're telling me that your husband matters more than your family." "Nate is my family," I said. "You're the one who keeps forgetting that." "If you don't come alone—" I hung up. Nate set down his tool bag. "What happened?" I told him. All of it. The dinner, the invitation, the exclusion, the exact words. He was quiet when I finished. Then he said, "Okay. It's not okay. I don't need to go to his dinner, Anna. I never expected to." "That's not the point. The point is he's spent 8 years treating you like you're less than him. And I'm done pretending it's fine." "What did you tell him?" "That if you're not invited, I'm not going." Nate looked at me for a long moment. He's going to be angry. Good, he said. You know he'll never apologize, right? I said, I know, but I'm done waiting for him to change. I'm just changing what I'm willing to accept. 2 hours later, Rachel called. Dad called me. He's furious. He wants me to talk to you. I'm not changing my mind. I know, but Anna, is this really the hill you want to die on? I could hear the strain in her voice. Rachel, caught in the middle, again, always. Rachel, he uninvited my husband because he's embarrassed by him. I know, it's wrong, but Dad's not going to change, and if you don't go, he'll hold it against you forever. He already holds everything against me. I married the wrong person. I chose the wrong career. I don't live up to Mom's memory. Nothing I do is ever enough. That's not fair. Neither is asking me to choose between my father's approval and my husband's dignity. Silence on the line. Then, what do you want me to do? Nothing. Go to the dinner. Celebrate with Dad. I don't expect you to fight my battle. But you're fighting it anyway. Someone has to. Rachel said quietly, Mom would have gone to the dinner and made Dad miserable the entire time. I said, Mom would have told Dad he was being an ass and refused to go. We both knew I was right. Before she hung up, Rachel said, if something happens at the dinner, something Dad doesn't expect, I'll let you know. I didn't understand what she meant then. Wednesday, March 11th. I received an email from my father. Subject line, dinner details, March 15th. The body was pure logistics. Cocktails at 6:30 p.m., dinner service at 7 p.m. sharp. Formal business attire, valet parking available. He signed it. I look forward to celebrating this milestone with you. Dad. The email signature included his new title, Managing Partner, Energy Practice, Hartfield and Klein. The title he'd been working toward for 30 years. The title that, I knew but he didn't, depended on technology owned by the man he'd just excluded. I drafted 3 responses, deleted them all. Finally, I wrote, I will not be attending. I wish you well for your celebration. I hit send at 11:47 p.m. on Thursday, March 12th. My father called immediately. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Anna, I'm disappointed. I thought you'd reconsider. This is a significant moment in my career, and I wanted to share it with you. But if you'd rather make a point than support your father, that's your choice. I've given you the opportunity to be part of something important. Your mother would have understood the significance of this evening. She would have been proud. I'm sorry you've chosen to prioritize other relationships over your family. I hope you'll reconsider before Saturday. If not, I'll accept that you've made your priorities clear. I listened to it twice. Then I showed it to Nate. He said, he's using your mom against you. I said, I know. Does it work? Not anymore. Friday, March 13th. Rachel called again. Dad asked me to take pictures at the dinner. He wants me to send them to you. To show you what you're missing. Are you going to? I don't know. Probably. He's my father. I understand. Anna, I wish Mom were here. Me too. She'd know what to say. She'd tell Dad he's being a controlling ass and he should apologize. Rachel laughed, but it sounded like crying. Then she said, if something happens at the dinner, something Dad doesn't expect, I'll keep my eyes open. I said, okay, not knowing what she meant. Saturday, March 15th, 2026, the day of the dinner. Nate and I spent the morning running errands, farmer's market, laundry. He fixed a loose cabinet hinge in the kitchen. I worked on documentation for a client. Normal Saturday things. My phone buzzed 11 times throughout the day. I turned off notifications around noon. At 5:30 p.m., Nate asked if I wanted to go out for dinner. Just the 2 of us. Somewhere nice, but not too nice. Somewhere we could be ourselves. We drove to Giuliano's, a small Italian place in Beacon Hill we'd been going to since 2018. The owner, Antonio, knew our names. The food was good, and the prices were reasonable, and nobody cared that Nate was wearing work boots. We ordered at 6:45 p.m., about the same time my father's dinner was starting at the Colonnade, 4 miles away. Nate ordered pasta. I ordered fish. We talked about his week. The medical center project was ahead of schedule. His team lead, Jeremy, was learning fast. Normal conversation. The kind of conversation my father had never had with Nate in 8 years. I asked, "How's the medical center job?" "Good. We're ahead of schedule, which never happens." "Your team?" "Solid. Jeremy's learning fast. I might make him lead on the next phase." "That's great." Nate looked at me across the table. "You okay?" "Yeah." "Thinking about your dad's dinner?" "No. Thinking about how this is better." He smiled, reached across the table, took my hand. At 7:18 p.m., my phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. "Dinner started. Dad seems happy. 19 partners here plus him. It's a lot." I showed Nate. He read it, didn't react much. I put the phone away. Our server, Antonio, brought tiramisu on the house at 8:30 p.m. For my favorite couple. The total bill was $48. 4 miles away, my father was spending over $8,000 on a dinner I wasn't attending. At 8:47 p.m., another text from Rachel. "Dad just got toasted. Big speech about the retail client project. He looks so happy." I didn't respond. Just kept eating dessert with my husband. The man my father didn't think belonged at a table with executives. We left the restaurant at 9:15 p.m. Drove home. Put on a movie. Normal Saturday night. At 9:32 p.m. my phone lit up. Text from Rachel. "Something just happened. Calling you." The call didn't come. Instead, 30 seconds later, a video file appeared in my messages. 48 seconds of shaky phone footage. I hit play. The video quality was poor. Rachel's hand was shaking, but I could see the private dining room at the Colonnade, mahogany panels, crystal chandelier, table set for 20. My father was at the head of the table, smiling. Then Alexander Hartfield stood up, white-haired, sharp-eyed, 68 years old, the founding partner of Hartfield and Klein. His voice cut through the ambient noise. "Lawrence, I need to ask you something. Your daughter Anna, she's married to an electrician, correct?" My father's smile didn't waver. "Yes. 7 years now." "And her husband's name?" "Nathan. Nathan Brooks." "Why do you ask?" Alexander's face changed. Just slightly. A pause. A recalculation. "What does Nathan do for work?" My father shifted in his seat, uncomfortable. "He's an electrician, commercial work." "Licensed electrician or electrical engineer?" I believe he's licensed. He does installations, that kind of thing." "Does he have a degree?" My father paused. "I think he mentioned MIT once. Continuing education, maybe." Alexander stared at him for 3 full seconds. Then, "Lawrence, is your son-in-law the Nathan Brooks who holds U.S. patent 11,582,193? My father's face went blank. "I'm sorry, I don't... What patent?" "The HVAC load monitoring system. The one we've been trying to license for Atlantic retail since last summer." "I'm not following. My son-in-law is an electrician. He doesn't hold patents." Alexander's voice was patient. Too patient. "Lawrence, we've been negotiating with a Nathan Brooks for 8 months. MIT electrical engineering degree, 2010. Licensed master electrician in Massachusetts. Owns a patent for commercial HVAC optimization. He refuses to license it without implementation oversight. I've met with him twice via video call. Is this your son-in-law?" My father's face drained of color. He's never mentioned a patent." Have you asked? Silence. Other partners were starting to notice the conversation. Thomas Brennan leaned in. Catherine Rowland turned in her seat. Thomas said, "Wait, your son-in-law is the Brooks we can't close?" My father looked lost. "I don't understand what's happening." Alexander pulled out his phone, opened an email, showed my father the screen. I couldn't see what was on it from the video angle, but I knew. It was Nate's photo from the Zoom calls, the headshot he uses for professional correspondence. "Is this your son-in-law?" My father stared at the screen. His mouth opened, closed. "Yes. This is the inventor we've been pursuing for 8 months, the man whose technology is critical to the Atlantic project, the project your promotion depends on." My father looked up. His face was gray. "He's never said anything." "About the patent? About any of this?" Alexander was very still. "Lawrence, where is your son-in-law tonight?" He wasn't invited. "To your promotion dinner. This is a professional event. You didn't think the man who owns the technology that determines whether you keep this position should be at your celebration dinner?" The table had gone completely silent, all 19 partners watching. James Whitmore said quietly, "Lawrence, do you know why Brooks keeps refusing our terms?" My father shook his head. "Because he doesn't trust us to implement his system properly. He thinks consulting firms cut corners. And you just excluded him from your family dinner because he's a tradesman." The video ended there. Rachel's phone storage had filled up mid-recording, but I'd seen enough. I sat on my couch, phone in my hand, Nate next to me. He'd watched the video over my shoulder. "When did Alexander realize?" he asked. "Tonight. Just now. He recognized your name." My phone rang. "Rachel." I answered on speaker. Rachel's voice was shaking. "Did you watch it? Anna, did you know Dad's entire promotion depends on Nate's patent?" Nate spoke up. "Hey, Rachel, yeah, we knew." "Since when?" I said. "Nate told me in November that Hartfield and Klein was trying to license his patent. I didn't know Dad's promotion depended on it. I didn't know it would come out like this." "Why didn't you tell Dad?" "Because he never asked," Nate said simply. "And because I wanted to keep the negotiation separate from family." Rachel's voice. "Anna, what happened after the video cut off?" "I don't know. What happened?" Alexander pulled Dad aside. Private conversation in the hallway. Maybe 12 minutes. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard Alexander say 8 months of negotiations and refuses every term and implementation standards. When they came back, Dad's hands were shaking. He said he wasn't feeling well and left. It's 10:15 now. The partners are still here. I'm hiding in the bathroom. I heard Catherine Rowland say, "Did Lawrence really not know his own son-in-law holds the patent we need?" And Thomas said, "Apparently he never asked." Nate said, "Rachel, there's more you should know." For the next 20 minutes, Nate explained. The patent. How it came from noticing a pattern while working in commercial buildings, HVAC systems cycling inefficiently because they couldn't monitor real-time load. 2 years developing a retrofit solution. Filed the patent in 2021, granted June 2023. The same month Mom died, Rachel said quiet. "Yes." "And Dad never knew?" "He never asked." Rachel. "What about the negotiations? Why did you keep refusing?" Nate explained. Hartfield and Klein wanted unlimited license with no implementation standards. They wanted to hire the cheapest subcontractors to maximize profit. 6 term sheets between July and February. All rejected. I kept saying, "My patent includes implementation standards. If you want to use my system, you have to use certified electricians and follow my installation protocols." They said that was too expensive and too slow. Rachel's voice was small. They wanted to cut corners? They wanted to maximize profit per store. My standards would have added $8,000 per installation. Across 820 stores, that's $6.5 million. They said it was cost prohibitive. I said, "You were protecting people." I was protecting the integrity of the work. Bad electrical installation in a commercial building can kill someone. Rachel asked, "Does this mean Dad's promotion is in jeopardy?" Nate said, "I don't know their internal politics. I just know they can't legally implement the energy efficiency solution they've promised Atlantic Retail without licensing my patent. And I won't license it to a firm that puts profit over safety." Silence on the line. Then Rachel, barely a whisper, "Does Dad know all this now?" I said, "He knows now. Alexander told him tonight." "What do you think Dad will do?" I was quiet for a long moment. Then I said, "He'll try to make this Nate's fault." Rachel said, "Anna, Dad's calling me. What should I say to him?" "Tell him the truth. Tell him I know everything, and tell him if he wants to talk to me, he needs to apologize first. Not for the patent situation, for 8 years of disrespect." Rachel hung up. Nate and I sat in silence. I expected him to be angry, or vindicated, or satisfied. Instead, he looked sad. "How do you feel?" I asked. He thought about it. "Sad." "Sad?" "Your father spent 8 years thinking I was incapable of complex thought. He never asked about my work. He never asked about my education. He made assumptions based on my job title and decided I wasn't worth his time, and now his entire career depends on me signing a licensing agreement." He paused. "That's not justice, Anna. That's just sad. He deserves this. Maybe. But it doesn't make me feel better. I never wanted to prove him wrong. I just wanted to do good work and be respected for it." I understood then. This was the difference between us. I felt vindication. Nate felt grief. Not for my father. For what could have been if my father had just been curious instead of dismissive. "What are you going to do?" Nate asked. "I'm going to set a boundary," I said. "And this time, I'm not backing down." If you're still listening to this story, thank you. I know it's not an easy one, but sometimes the hardest stories are the ones that need to be told. If this is resonating with you, if you've ever had to choose between family approval and self-respect, stay with me, because this is where it gets real. Sunday, March 16th. I woke to 3 missed calls from my father. 6:47 a.m., 7:15 a.m., 8:02 a.m. Then the texts started. 6:52 a.m. "We need to talk." 7:18 a.m. "This is important, call me." 8:05 a.m. "Anna, I don't understand what happened last night. Alexander said things that don't make sense, please call." 9:30 a.m. "I'm trying to reach you, this is urgent." 11:43 a.m. "Your husband has been in negotiations with my firm and never told me." 2:15 p.m. "This affects my career. I need to understand the situation." 4:32 p.m. "You're not being fair. I deserve an explanation." I didn't open the texts until evening. Nate and I spent Sunday doing normal things. Farmer's market, laundry. He fixed a cabinet hinge. I worked on documentation. Life continued. My phone buzzed 11 times. I turned off notifications. At 8:47 p.m., I finally read all 7 texts. I showed them to Nate. "Notice he doesn't apologize," Nate said. "Notice he still doesn't ask about your work," I said. "Just, this affects my career." Monday, March 17th. Rachel texted me at 10:15 a.m. "Dad didn't go to work today. He called in sick. His assistant called me to ask if he was okay. I've never seen him take a sick day." Later. "He's at home. Won't answer my calls either." And, "Anna, I think he's having a breakdown. He keeps texting me asking if I know how long Nate has had the patent." And finally, "He asked me if you're ever going to speak to him again. I didn't know what to say. I didn't respond to Rachel. Not yet. I remembered. When my mother was dying, Lawrence didn't take a single sick day. He worked through chemotherapy appointments, hospital visits, the final week in hospice. But now, faced with professional embarrassment, he couldn't face his office. That told me everything I needed to know about his priorities. At 7:20 p.m. Monday evening, an email arrived. From Alexander Hartfield. Subject line, request for meeting, Nathan Brooks. The email went to Nate's business address. Mr. Brooks, I hope this message finds you well. I am writing to request a meeting to discuss potential licensing arrangements for U.S. Patent 11,582,193. I understand from prior communications through Carter and Associates that you have concerns about implementation standards. I would like to discuss those concerns directly and explore whether mutually acceptable terms are possible. I recognize that our previous proposals did not adequately address your requirements for quality oversight. I would appreciate the opportunity to present a revised approach. Would you be available for a call this week? Respectfully, Alexander Hartfield, founding partner, Hartfield and Klein. Nate showed me before responding. You're still willing to work with them? I asked. I'm willing to work with anyone who's willing to do the work right. Alexander isn't your father. He's a businessman who needs a solution. If he'll meet my terms, I'll license the patent. Even after everything? My patent isn't personal. It's just a tool. What matters is whether it gets used safely. He replied, Mr. Hartfield, thank you for reaching out directly. I am open to a conversation about licensing terms, provided that any agreement includes enforceable implementation standards and installer certification requirements. I am available Thursday, March 20th at 2 p.m. for a call. Best regards, Nathan Brooks. This was who Nate was, principled, but not vindictive, firm, but not punitive. He didn't need my father to suffer. He just needed the work to be done correctly. Wednesday, March 19th. An email arrived in my personal inbox from my father's personal Gmail account, lawmercer1967@gmail.com, an address I hadn't seen since 2019. Anna, I need you to understand something. I did not know about Nathan's patent. If I had known, things would have been different. I have spent my entire career building relationships, building trust, building a reputation. What happened at the dinner on Saturday has undermined all of that. Alexander Hartfield has been in contact with Nathan directly. This is inappropriate. Nathan should have disclosed his professional involvement with my firm. This creates a conflict of interest. I am asking you, as my daughter, to convince Nathan to license his patent to Hartfield and Klein on reasonable terms. This situation is affecting my position and my credibility with my colleagues. I understand you are angry with me. We can discuss that later. Right now, I need you to help me resolve this professional issue. Dad. I read it 3 times. Each time, I got angrier. Not at the words themselves, at what was missing. No apology for excluding Nate. No acknowledgement of 8 years of dismissal. No recognition that he'd created this situation by never asking, never caring, never seeing. Just, help me fix my career problem. I drafted 4 responses, deleted all 4. Finally, at 11:47 p.m., I wrote, Dad, Nate's patent licensing decisions are his business decisions. I will not interfere. If you want to discuss our relationship, I'm willing to have that conversation. But we will not discuss Nate's work. Anna. Thursday, March 20th. Rachel called. Dad asked me to mediate. He wants me to set up a meeting with you and him. He says he wants to clear the air. Anna, what should I do? Do you want to mediate? No. I want to stay out of it. But he's my father. He's my father too. And I love him. but I won't negotiate my marriage or my boundaries for his career. He thinks Nate should have told him about the patent. Nate doesn't owe Dad information about his work. Dad never asked. Not once in 8 years. Rachel was quiet. Then, I know. I've been thinking about that. How many times did Dad interrupt Nate at dinners? How many times did he change the subject when Nate tried to talk about a project? Every time. Yeah. Silence. Rachel, you don't have to choose sides. You can love Dad and still see what he did. I know, but it's hard. Before hanging up, Rachel said, "There's something else. Catherine Rowland asked me for your email address." Who's Catherine Rowland? Senior partner. She was at the dinner. She said she wants to talk to you. I didn't give her your email, but should I? Friday, March 21st, 3:42 p.m. An email from Catherine Rowland arrived in my inbox. Dear Anna, I hope you don't mind that I reached out to Rachel for your contact information. My name is Catherine Rowland. I'm a senior partner at Hartfield & Klein, specializing in healthcare consulting. I attended your father's celebration dinner last Saturday. I wanted to reach out for 2 reasons. First, to say that what happened at the dinner was illuminating. Your father's reaction to learning about your husband's patent made several of us realize that Lawrence has never spoken about Nathan's work with any detail or respect. That reflects poorly on your father, not on your family. Second, I wanted you to know that several of us have great respect for Nathan's position on implementation standards. He is right to insist on quality oversight. Consulting firms often prioritize speed and cost over safety. It's refreshing to work with someone who won't compromise on that. Your father's colleagues are not your father. Some of us would very much like to meet the woman who raised such a principled man. And we'd like to understand why Lawrence never mentioned that his son-in-law was Nathan Brooks. If you're ever willing to have coffee, I'd welcome the conversation. No pressure, no agenda, just professional curiosity. Warmly, Catherine Rowland. I forwarded the email to Nate. His response: she's doing politics. Me: or she's being genuine. Him: could be both. I didn't respond to Catherine yet, but I saved the email. This was evidence that the world was bigger than my father's narrow view. There were people in his own firm who saw what he couldn't. At exactly 2 p.m. that Thursday, Nate's phone rang. Alexander Hartfield. The licensing negotiation was beginning. Saturday, March 22nd, 2026, 10 o'clock in the morning. I walked into Thinking Cup, a coffee shop on Tremont Street in downtown Boston, equidistant from my house and my father's. He'd texted Wednesday, "Can we meet Saturday? Just the 2 of us. Please." I'd agreed, not because I expected him to change, because I needed to say things face to face. I'd prepared like I was preparing a technical document. Organized, evidence-based, unemotional. I'd created a timeline, printed it, 3 pages. Every dismissal I could remember from the past 3 years, with dates and exact quotes where possible. June 2023. Elizabeth's funeral. Last time Lawrence treated Nate with warmth. August 2023, first dismissal at family dinner. November 2023. That's nice response to Nate's hospital project. December 2023. Home Depot gift card. March 2024. Interrupted Nate's MIT mention. Easter 2025. Not the same as a trajectory. October 2025. Ignored Nate's expertise on energy efficiency. February 2026. He'd be bored. March 8th, 2026. Doesn't belong at a table with executives. I brought the timeline in a folder. I brought my phone with screenshots of his demanding texts. I arrived 10 minutes early. My father was already there, sitting in a corner booth. He looked tired. I didn't feel sorry for him. He started talking before I even sat down. "I'm glad we could meet. We need to discuss what happened." You mean what you did? I said. His face tightened. Anna, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No, there's been 8 years of you dismissing my husband. That's not a misunderstanding, that's a pattern. I never dismissed Nathan. I've always been polite. Polite isn't the same as respectful. I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate being told that my husband doesn't belong at a table with executives. My father leaned back. You're still upset about the dinner invitation. I'm upset about everything the dinner invitation represents. I opened my folder, slid the timeline across the table. I made this for you. Read it. He scanned the pages, his face tightened with each line. What is this? Evidence. Every time you dismissed Nate, interrupted him, or treated him like he was less than you. Dates, locations, exact quotes where I can remember them. Anna, you're being dramatic. Am I? Because I have 3 pages of specific examples. Those are your interpretations. No. Those are your actions. 2 other customers in the coffee shop glanced our way. My voice hadn't risen, but the intensity filled the space. Even if I was less attentive than I could have been, my father said, that doesn't explain why Nathan never told me about his patent. That's on him. This was the moment. The moment I'd been preparing for. I leaned forward. Nate didn't tell you about his patent because you never asked about his work. Not once. You never asked where he went to college. You never asked what projects he was working on. You never asked what he was proud of. You made assumptions based on his job title and decided he wasn't worth your curiosity. And now you're angry because those assumptions made you look foolish in front of your colleagues. You're angry because the man you excluded from your celebration dinner turns out to be the man your promotion depends on. You're angry because you got caught. But here's what you're not. You're not sorry. You're not apologizing for 8 years of dismissing him. You're not acknowledging that you treated my husband like he was beneath you. You're just upset that your behavior had consequences. My father started to speak. I kept going. I came here hoping you'd recognize what you did, that you'd see how your grief over Mom twisted into something cruel, that you'd apologize. But you can't even see it, can you? I am not cruel, he said. I have been nothing but... You've been nothing but blind. You see people as categories, useful or useless, prestigious or embarrassing. You stop seeing Nate as a person, and you stop seeing me as anything except a reflection of your image. So what do you want from me? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. Is that what you need to hear? I stood up. That's not an apology. That's you trying to make this conversation end. What do you want me to say, Anna? I want you to mean it, but you don't. You're not sorry you hurt Nate. You're not sorry you dismissed him for 8 years. You're just sorry it affected your career. That's not fair. Neither is asking me to choose between my father's approval and my husband's dignity. But you did that. And I chose. My father's face hardened. So that's it? You're cutting me off over this? I left $5 on the table for my untouched coffee. I'm setting a boundary. If you can't respect my husband, you can't have access to my life. When you're ready to actually apologize, not because you need something, but because you understand what you did, call me. Until then, we're done. I picked up my folder, walked out, didn't look back, got in my car, sat in the driver's seat for 2 minutes, breathing. Then I drove home. It was 10:23 a.m. The meeting had lasted exactly 23 minutes. When I pulled into my driveway, Nate was in the garage, working on a project. He saw my face, set down his tools. How did it go? I'm done waiting for him to see me. He pulled me close, held me. We stood there in our garage for 5 minutes, not talking. Sometimes that's enough. Monday, March 24th. Rachel went to my father's house, unannounced. She called me afterward. I told Dad off. Actually told him off. My hands are still shaking. What did you say? I said he created the situation by never respecting Nate, and that I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. Rachel, you didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. I've been watching him dismiss Nate for 3 years. I told myself it wasn't my place to say anything. But after Saturday, after seeing your timeline, I realized staying silent makes me complicit. What did he say? He tried to make it my fault for taking sides. I told him I'm taking the side of basic respect. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm scared, but I'm okay. Scared of what? That he'll cut me off. That I'll lose him the way you did. Rachel, you didn't lose me. I'm right here. I know. I meant, Mom's already gone. If I lose Dad too, you're not losing him. You're just changing what you'll accept from him. Before we hung up, Rachel said, I made a therapy appointment. First session is April 2nd. I was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm proud of you. Wednesday, March 25th, 2 p.m. Nate had his call with Alexander Hartfield. It lasted 90 minutes. When it was over, Nate came downstairs to where I was working. It's done, he said. Alexander just sent the final agreement. I'm reviewing it now. What are the terms? Everything I asked for. License fee. $580,000 up front, paid within 10 business days. Ongoing royalty, $125,000 per year for the duration of the Atlantic retail contract, 3-year minimum. Implementation standards, mandatory, written into the contract. Installer certification, all electricians must be licensed and complete my 8-hour safety training. Oversight, I conduct quarterly safety audits, can revoke license if standards are violated. He agreed to all of it? All of it. He said, we should have listened to you in July. It would have saved us 8 months. I told him, it would have saved you a promotion dinner too. He actually laughed. Did he mention Dad? No, and I didn't ask. This is business. Your father is something else. Friday, March 27th, 11:47 a.m. Nate signed the licensing agreement via DocuSign. He showed me the confirmation email. The first payment hits next Friday, $580,000. I looked at my husband. This man my father had dismissed for 8 years. This man who'd held the line on safety standards when it would have been easier to compromise. This man who'd just earned more in one licensing deal than my father made in a year. How do you feel? Relieved. The technology will be used correctly. Not vindicated? Anna, vindication would mean I wanted your father to fail. I didn't. I just wanted good work done safely. Now it will be. That's who he is. That's who he's always been. The man my father never bothered to know. Thursday, March 26th. I had my first therapy appointment. Dr. Sarah Winters, 52, direct. No wasted time on pleasantries. What brings you here? I cut off contact with my father 2 weeks ago. I think I did the right thing. But I feel untethered. Tell me what happened. I did. The dinner, the exclusion, the video, the confrontation, the walkout. She listened without interrupting. Then, what do you want from therapy? I want to stop waiting for him to apologize. Are you still waiting? I paused. Part of me is, even though I know he won't. That's the part we'll work on. The part that's waiting for a parent who doesn't exist. The father you needed him to be. My eyes filled. She said gently, you're not just grieving your father's absence from your life. You're grieving the father he never was. That's harder. Because you can't mourn what you never had without feeling like you're being dramatic. Everyone will think I'm overreacting. It's not like he hit me. It's not like he's a monster. Dismissal is its own kind of cruelty, especially over years, especially from a parent. So I'm not crazy? You're not crazy. You're hurt. And you have every right to protect yourself from someone who hurts you, even if that person is your father. It was the first time I'd heard that validation from someone who wasn't Nate, someone whose job was to see clearly. At the end of the session, she asked, "Same time next week?" I said yes. First time I'd committed to ongoing therapy. First time I'd admitted this was a wound that needed tending, not just a decision to make. Saturday, March 28th. I met Catherine Rowland for coffee. She'd suggested Thinking Cup, the same place I'd confronted my father 6 days earlier. "I wanted to meet here," she said, "because I want you to reclaim this space. Your last memory here shouldn't be your father's inability to apologize." I was surprised by the directness. "You know about that?" Rachel mentioned it, and honestly, it tracks. Lawrence has never been good at apologies, even in professional settings. "You've worked with him for how long?" 15 years. He's brilliant at client work, terrible at relationships. Your mother was the bridge between his intellect and his humanity. When she died, the bridge collapsed. She met my eyes. I'm not here to defend him. I'm here because I saw what happened at that dinner, and I was ashamed. Not of you, of us. We've all watched Lawrence dismiss people who don't fit his narrow definition of success. We never called him on it. Why not? Because he's good at his job. Because office politics are complicated. Because it was easier to look away? Pause. I'm sorry. You deserved better from your father's colleagues. You're not responsible for him. No. But I'm responsible for staying silent. We talked for 45 minutes. Catherine wasn't offering to fix things with my father. She was offering mentorship to me and Rachel, separate from him. She was offering a relationship that existed outside his shadow. As we were leaving, she said, "Your husband was right to hold the line on safety standards. We should have listened in July. I'm glad he didn't back down." Even though it made things difficult? Especially because it made things difficult. Difficulty is where integrity lives. Before we parted, she said, "I'm having some people over next month. Small dinner party, April 20th. Would you and Nate come? Rachel too? Who else will be there?" "People I like, not people I work with." I said I'd check with Nate. I already knew he'd say yes. Sunday, March 30th, 2026, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 2 weeks exactly after the dinner that changed everything. Nate and I were hosting a small gathering at our house. Not a party. Just people. 5 total. Rachel arrived first. Brought wine. Helped set the table. Catherine arrived second. Brought flowers. Asked where she could help. Jeremy, Nate's lead electrician, 29, shy but warming up, came with dessert. We ate food Nate and I had cooked together. Roasted chicken, spring vegetables, bread from the bakery down the street. We talked about work, hobbies, books, normal things. Catherine told a story about a disastrous client meeting. Everyone laughed. Jeremy mentioned a job site where the architect's plans didn't match the building's actual structure. More laughter. Rachel talked about a hiking trail she wanted to try. This was what family looked like. Not the one I was born into, the one I chose. At 5:30, the conversation fragmented into pairs. Rachel and Jeremy talking about weekend plans, Catherine helping me clear plates, Nate making coffee. Catherine said quietly, "This is good. What you've built here." I looked around. "It's just dinner." "No, it's family. Not the one you were born into. The one you chose." My eyes prickled. Is it allowed to feel this good? 2 weeks after cutting off your father? It's allowed to feel however it feels. Guilt and relief can coexist. I keep waiting for the guilt to win. It won't. Because you didn't do this to hurt him. You did it to save yourself. The guests left at 6:45. Rachel hugged me at the door, whispered, Thank you for showing me what a boundary looks like. You set your own. I learned from you. 7 p.m. Everyone gone. Nate and I cleaning up. Dishes in the sink. Leftover food in containers. Wine glasses on the counter. The comfortable quiet of a good day ending. That was nice, Nate said. It was. Catherine's interesting. I like her. Me too. I didn't expect to. He dried a wine glass. Set it in the cabinet. 2 weeks ago, you walked out of a coffee shop not knowing if you'd ever speak to your father again. I still don't know if I will. How does that feel? I thought about it. Sad, but not wrong. Those can both be true. I know. Pause. I started therapy on Thursday. Nate looked at me. How was it? Hard? Good. The therapist said I'm mourning the father I needed him to be. That makes sense. She said it's okay to protect myself from someone who hurts me, even if that person is my parent. It is okay. I needed to hear someone say it who wasn't you. Not because I don't trust you. Because I love you. And she doesn't. So she can see it clearly. Yeah. I looked around our kitchen. Clean now except for 2 wine glasses we were finishing. Outside, March darkness settling over Boston. Inside, warmth. 2 weeks ago, I didn't know if I'd done the right thing. And now? I was quiet for a moment. Then, now I know I did. Not because Dad suffered, because I stopped waiting for him to see me. Nate set down his glass, pulled me close. That's healing. I rested my head on his shoulder. That's the beginning of it. What I knew then, Lawrence hadn't changed. He might never apologize. Our relationship might be over permanently. Rachel was finding her own way, setting her own boundaries. Therapy would be long. Grief would be complicated. Healing wouldn't be linear. But I also knew I'd set a boundary and held it. Nate had signed a license agreement with his integrity intact. Catherine had offered friendship without strings. Rachel had confronted Lawrence too. Our kitchen had been full of chosen family. I didn't need my father's approval to build a good life. Healing had begun. It was 7:30 p.m. on March 30th, 2026. 2 weeks since the dinner. 2 weeks since the video. 2 weeks since I chose myself. My phone was on the counter. No notifications from Lawrence. No apology. No acknowledgement. I didn't check it anymore. That's the real ending. Not reconciliation. Not revenge. Just me. Finally free to stop waiting for a father who is never going to show up. That's healing. The beginning of it anyway. And that's enough.